truancy body. The state can't explain that, so they just conveniently leave it out. Your Honor, there were wiretaps on this case. Mr. Williams, it was going to come out, there was an application to wiretap his phone. The state never presented to a judge. That speaks volumes. The leader of the YSL criminal street gang, who's been involved from 2012 until his arrest, and even according to the state, while we sit here, they never even tried to wiretap his phone. It might have been because they don't really know what his phone number is. So all these communications you're being told about with Mr. Huey, I'm not so sure the state could have gotten anybody to say that's Mr. Williams' phone. This is how the trial has gone for us. But we sit here for almost 2 years since we did our jury selection initiation on January 4th, 2023. Mr. Williams has been sitting in a jail since May 9th, 2022. This is 2.5 years waiting for the conclusion of the state's case and a verdict from the jury, and that's why he is tendering this plea. I'm telling the court this, and the court knows when you came out the first time, it's very hard for Mr. Williams. I am not supportive of what we're doing right now. I'm not against it. But I told Mr. Williams, you okay with me saying that? Yes. I told Mr. Williams that I think we're winning the trial and we should go to verdict. But he told me I can't wait another 3 months if there is any possibility I could go home because I have children that are hurting. I have things to do, and he has some medical issues that he would like to tend to. He eats out of a bag, Your Honor. He eats processed food only. He gained 75 pounds during trial. He's lost it since. But it is hard. You know, for me, it's only 3 more months. It's enjoyable, actually. I enjoy coming. It's not that enjoyable for Mr. Williams. He told me he wakes up. I said, yes. He wakes up every day, and it's another day in HE blank blank. Your Honor,
Doug,
the
come
state
home, man.
is talking about, in this case, they put in social media. This honorable court was not here, but the state put in that Mr. Williams, in the indictment, Mr. Williams put out a call for murder. He put $24 million murder for hire on a person's head. That is a lot of money, and that is awful. If they would have read the chat, the Instagram chat, Mr. Williams, right above it, there's a picture of a very well-known, very accomplished musical artist who actually had surgically implanted in his forehead a pink diamond worth $24 million that day. That's what Mr. Williams would talk about. That's the type of evidence that is coming from the state of Georgia in this case. It is wrong. This is all wrong. And I know we're pleading guilty, and I know we're pleading nolo, and I know we're asking this honorable court for a certain sentence, and we'll
guilty.
get to it with the court's permission. But this is the type of evidence that there is. But it is holding this man hostage. And that's not really what we're supposed to do, district attorney time in the state of Georgia or anywhere. The state then, because I opened on that, then they never bothered to put in all of the chats. Why did it take me to read the chats? In addition to that, going back to Donovan Thomas, talk about Mr. Williams involved, the state did a geofence. A geofence tracks his devices. It doesn't have to be a phone. It could be an iPad. It could be any type of electronic device that targets and is used. You don't have to be on the phone. It's the contact. If he has an app open, it'll capture it. And the state targeted the McDonald's, where they keep saying that Mr. Williams met with people there. They targeted the barbershop where, God forbid, the killing occurred. And they targeted a third location, no, 2 locations. And it comes out.
My bad, dog. My bad.
Prosecution. I did a motion for that. They just can't find it. That is great evidence for Mr. Williams. It would have also shown clearly that when he does go down from his house after getting this call that I'll talk about from Demise McMullen, He's not with these other people. And the expert for the state, the FBI agent who does the telephone analysis, Mr. Williams' phone does not ping off the same tower as a Demise McMullen or a Mr. Copeland or a Mr. Garlington or whomever. The state of Georgia has misrepresented for 2 years in front of this jury. They have hidden evidence. They have violated Brady. They have falsely accused Mr. Williams. Your Honor, saying that Mr. Williams gets that call 7 minutes after, the state said 6, it was 7 minutes after the killing of Donovan Thomas from Demise McMullen. Mr. Williams was already out of his home. Mr. Demise McMullen's calling Mr. Williams. He's not even there. He's going down to meet with Mr. Kelvin Treadwell, also known as O.G. Bentley. O.G. Bentley was supposed to go to Miami, Florida. They were talking about this deal. And Mr. Williams, that day, he was given another contract. Mr. Williams, by this time, he went from zero money. He is a multimillionaire at the time. He doesn't need the Cleveland Avenue drug deals for $15. He doesn't need the shootings. He wasn't even living in Atlanta since 2018, 19, 20, 21. He came back the very end of 21, 6 months, and he got arrested in May of 2022. In his house, Your Honor, we have everyone on the witness list. There are 12 people living at that house. Mr. Williams opens up any of a car that he has. He'll rent cars for people. Any home he has, he will allow people to live in hotels because people that he knows, unfortunately, are homeless. And he gives them all places to stay, cars to drive around. He is not involved in criminal activity. Mr. Williams just got back in our country. His passport shows it. Right before he was arrested on May 9th of 2022, there were other people in that house with the drugs and the guns. There are people whose the guns are in their names. They were going to come in court and claim the guns. Everybody else was doing as well, but Mr. Williams has entered a guilty plea. I'm not going back on that, but I just want you to know that this case is just wrong to do to somebody with no bond and to hold him hostage. He wants to, you may not do it. He's aware of that. He's aware of that. But the state offered him 15 years on probation. But they keep piling on these conditions. He just said, he made up his mind. He said, I'm just going to go with it. I got to get home. Judge may not let me home, but I'm not doing these conditions and admit that I'm the leader and I'm involved in the killing and my music just promoted everybody to do it. He's not going to do that. So he did not do that. And that's how we wound up here. The state, the night of the killing, people came to Mr. Williams' home. The state tells the court, he said, lay low. What they don't tell you is right after that, he gave money to Mr. Sledge, who said, they're going to kill me. They think I did it. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with it, I don't want to be with you. And Mr. Sledge said, I just need a hotel room with my children and my bride or my significant other to get to. And Mr. Williams said, be safe, lay low. That's the lay low. In addition to that, Mr. Williams told Mr. Copeland, Mr. Copeland's with the police. Hours after the killing of Mr. Donovan Thomas, Mr. Copeland goes to the police department. Mr. Williams is the person who told him to go. Mr. Copeland said, what do? They're shooting at my house, at my family's house, at my significant other's mother's house. And Mr. Williams said, if you had anything to do with the murder, get out of here. Mr. Copeland denied it. And Mr. Williams said, then go tell the police. Mr. Copeland said, you want me to go to the police? And Mr. Williams said, if you had nothing to do with it, they think you did it. Go to the police. In addition to that, Mr. Copeland said, well, I'm going to retaliate. Mr. Williams told him, don't do that. Let 12 handle. That's on recordings. That is on recordings on January 11th of 2015 with Detective Thorpe. Your Honor, as far as Dwayne Carter, a performer known as Lil Wayne, Mr. Williams had no conflict with him. They are friends. We were presenting evidence that right before this shooting of the tour bus is April 26th of 2015. Mr. Williams is performing in New Orleans area. Then that's the area where it's Holly Grove, where Mr. Carter, or Lil Wayne, the performer known as Lil Wayne, comes from. And in order to drum up popularity and interest, people get on the internet and they start what's called rap battles, arguments, feuds. That's what happened here, and you would have heard testimony from Mr. Williams' management that they said, start a rap battle. It'll be better for your career. Mr. Dwayne Carter is aware of that. Mr. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. The state's aware of this. He has interviews after this. Are you mad? What's the real deal with Jeffrey Williams? He states, no. He's great with me. He brought popularity to me. He loves me. He idolizes me, and I love working with him. They did an album together. In 2014, they're in the studio together, making music together. It is all made up that Mr. Williams is involved. Mr. Williams gives a statement. The state refuses to put it in and then stop me, the previous judge, from cross-examining the detective. His name is Racy. He met with Mr. Williams in the DeKalb County Jail on the 15th day of July 2015. Mr. Williams is arrested that day. And there's a long interview. And Mr. Williams waives his right to counsel. He tells them, I'm his lawyer. They say, you don't want to speak to us? You don't have to. He said, well, I'll speak with you. And they asked Mr. Williams these questions. What about Lil Wayne's shooting? He said, it was outrageous. I love him. That's my idol. I love Lil Wayne. How about this battle? He says it's promotion. They asked him about his rap lyrics. It's the only person that the state ever did anything about rap lyrics with. And they asked Mr. Williams, what about the rap lyrics? And he tells them, it's hyperbole. He didn't use that word. He used the word, it's made up. It's rhyming. It's made up. Not like the state is saying that I rap lyrics for real. That's not even Mr. Williams' utterance. Your Honor, the point I'm trying to make to you is what the state of Georgia has presented to this jury in this courtroom the past year has been full of untruths, and they know it. The state says that Mr. Williams had a conflict because he named an album with Dwayne Carter, and Dwayne Carter didn't like that. Dwayne Carter's interviewed. He said, that was one of the nicest things anyone could have done to me. It shows how much he really appreciates me. It shows respect and honor, and I appreciate what he did. The state knows this. With regards to Jimmy Winfrey, what the state did is they put in a recording. It's not Mr. Williams. It's a jail recording, Mr. Winfrey and an unknown person. And an unknown person says, when you get out, you're going to get a Porsche and $250,000. Mr. Williams not privy to that. The state looked at all of Mr. Williams' bank records, everything. They undressed him financially. There's zero evidence Mr. Williams did anything for Mr. Winfrey. The state tells you that Mr. Winfrey asked for money for a lawyer. The conversation was, and it's recorded, it was with Mr. Williams' manager. And Jimmy Winfrey said, I need to show that I was gainfully employed for the court. Can you get me something from YSL? And the manager said, yeah, if we have it, and if it's true, yes, you can have it. That is it. There's no evidence that Mr. Williams paid for anybody's lawyer, Mr. Winfrey or otherwise. In addition to that, Your Honor, the social media postings with Mr. Rashawn Bennett, also known as YFN Lucy. So Mr. Williams, the state tells Mr. Bennett on social media, I would have killed you if I didn't like the way you take care of your mother and children. That is the post. What they don't tell you is Mr. Bennett, who is also, to his credit, trying to drum up his career. Mr. Bennett is picking on Mr. Williams, who's a much higher profile artist than Mr. Bennett at that time. And Mr. Bennett is saying that he slept with Mr. Williams' fiance while Mr. Williams and she are a significant couple, that Mr. Williams' music is awful. Nobody should listen to his music ever. Mr. Williams responds by saying, we can do an album together if you want. Stop this. The man continues of how he's sleeping with Mr. Williams' significant other, and then Mr. Williams responds by saying, I would have killed you except for what you do. That is the context that they don't tell you about. And Mr. Williams did nothing to Mr. Bennett. In fact, the evidence would have shown, if we had time or we would have gone forward, that Mr. Bennett and Mr. Williams are on the red carpet receiving awards in California, sitting right next to each other and taking photographs. This is not the Jeffrey Williams. Jeffrey Williams is a known person who is all over the place. If he did something, somebody wanted him, they can find him. This is not he is not hanging out on Cleveland Avenue. What the state is saying are not true. The situation with Mr. Bennett, so he's in the Fulton County Jail, and he's housed, and there are crazy, sick, violent people, and they're on the phone, and Mr. Myrick, M-Y-R-I-C.
Florida's abortion ban doesn't just worry me, it terrifies me. There's nothing as a parent that I worry.
Jeffrey Williams give, he doesn't say that, but that's the theme of it, as well as Christian Eppinger. What the state doesn't tell you is that when Mr. Sumlin is asked, hey, find out how much Thug will pay me to kill Mr. YFN Lucci, Mr. Sumlin says, I don't know his number. I can't get in touch with him. He doesn't talk to me. And that's because, Your Honor, since 2015, and he means no insult, but Jeffrey Williams has had zero contact with Shannon Stillwell until this case, Kenneth Copeland, Demikian Garlington, Justin Cobb, Demise McMullen, Mr. Sledge, Mr. Murphy, all these people. This is a lie. This is a 100% lie, and that's why we tendered a no-low plea to being a leader of a criminal street gang. Mr. Williams is not a leader. In fact, if it would go forward, on Mr. Huey's phone, there are conversations with Mr. Copeland. And they both say how Jeffrey Williams is a zero, and F him. And they don't talk to him, and Jeffrey Williams never does anything for them. Mr. Huey, Mr. Williams met later. He met him closer in the time of 2020. Mr. Huey's father went through a horrible episode that Mr. Williams knew, and that's how Mr. Williams knew his son.
How much time y'all think
who's
you're gonna
Mr.
get?
Huey. And Mr. Huey's on hard times, and Mr. Huey's making mistakes. And Mr. Huey, supposedly, Mr. Williams believes, armed robbed a man named Chandler Durham, D-U-R-H-A-M. Mr. Durham is Mr. Williams. He's a fabulous record engineer. And Mr. Williams states, give him back, tell him to give back the property or he's going to die. The state puts that as an overt act. No one dies. The property doesn't get returned. Mr. Huey ignores Mr. Williams. The state told you today that Jeffrey Williams sent Mr. Huey a posting that Mr. YFN Lucci is going to be performing on January 19, 2020. That's not true. Mr. Huey sent that to whoever phone that was. And all it says is slat and slatty. Well, I went out to the places that Mr. Bennett was supposed to perform. There's no shooting. There was no fight. There was nothing to report. There's nothing here. In addition, the state says same thing on September 12th, September 2nd, 2022 on Mr. Huey's phone. I'm not conceding that was Jeffrey Williams even having a conversation with him, but even if it was, it doesn't show anything. It says slatty, lay low. Lay low means don't do anything. Get out of the way. That is what it is. That is Mr. Williams' role. Mr. Williams, there is evidence in the record, and there would have been more. He takes people on tour with him. He takes people in the mall with him. But when they do crime or do things to people, for instance, there was a prostitute, and several people gave that prostitute money, $500. And the prostitute, at the end of the $500, getting $500 from several people, had sex with a person, and then she was armed robbed. So all the money came back. Mr. Williams wasn't involved in that, but he heard about it. He made those people find the prostitute and repaid her every dime. People stole from stores that Mr. Williams found about. He went to the stores and he repaid all that. He didn't steal anything. He doesn't need to steal anything. Your Honor, Mr. Williams stands with Elton John. Elton John called Mr. Williams the next coming of John Lennon. Mr. Williams is unbelievable talent. He's not just a rap artist. In fact, when he's interviewed in 2017, he gives a statement and he says, I had to learn rap. He grew up in a house learning other forms of music. He likes all music, but rap hit in his community, and his community raised him. They supported him. They came out to him. They made him get into establishments. And once the establishment saw all the people come out, he got more establishments. And then he went out of that little area in Atlanta to other parts of Georgia, and then to all the neighboring states and throughout our country. And he has performed on every continent but one. He has performed in front of, being the headliner, 300,000 people at one time.
Well, that
He has a real life and
with his
career. He is
explanation.
not the leader, and he is not worried about buying jewelry that is stolen. Mr. Williams is actually innocent. I'm not trying to corrupt our plea. That's his plea, and he's entitled to it, and he wants it, and he embraces it. But to me, this is a wrongful prosecution. This is outrageous.
All right, so you're pleading guilty, or your client is pleading guilty to counts 57 through 62.
It's all
Right.
true.
Do you
Yes, there's a
concede
factual
there's a
basis.
factual basis
I
for
concede.
those counts?
Yes, I concede that.
Okay. All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just,
No, it's fine. And Your Honor, I'll answer
Yeah,
your
no
question.
fear.
But the point I'm trying to make is 45 years to serve 25 years in prison, when just this morning, it was a probationary offer. It was a probationary offer. The state knows, but they want to control. They have this theory of music, and they want to stop Mr. Williams from making music, from entertaining, just stop his life. That's just not right. And it's wrong of the district attorney in Fulton County to do that. If they offer probation, then he's not a 45 to serve 25 years in custody type of person, and he's certainly not the person that the state has
that lawyer
stated
wrong.
in front of the court. What we're asking, Your Honor,
Wish I had a lawyer.
on count
like that.
one,
No.
which is the RICO count, to accept the nolo contendere plea. Please sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve 5 years in prison commuted to time served. Mr. Williams has served, as I said, 22 and a half years. On count 56, Your Honor, that's the leadership of a gang, nolo plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, consecutive to all other counts. On count 57, which is
The state,
a
what you do,
gang
65%
count,
of
Your Honor,
time in the state?
not a leader, guilty plea, 20 years to serve 5 years commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. With regard to count 58, which
65%
is
of your time in the
possession of,
I think.
I believe it is marijuana with intent to distribute, 10-year sentence on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59,
I wouldn't get out on
which
no
is violation
probation,
Georgia
bro.
Controlled Substance
I'd
Act,
do another
possession
year
of
or two,
codeine
bro, and I
with
ain't with
intent to
all that.
distribute, 5 years on probation, concurrent with count 1. On count 59, Your Honor, which is violation Georgia Controlled Substance Act, possession of cocaine, 3 years on probation concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years of probation. It's a firearm count, consecutive to the other counts, consecutive to before count 56.
He said, I'm taking
And then
probation.
count 62, 10 years
Depending on what it
to
is,
serve
bro.
commuted to time served.
If you give
That
me
should be a
20
total
years
sentence, Your
probation
Honor,
and I
that
could
we are
do a year
respectfully
and not
requesting
have
the
to
court
pay
to
you for
consider.
20 years and
I
report,
believe it's 45 years to serve 5 years in prison, commuted to time served, 40 years on probation, credit for the time already served and community time served. As I said, after 3 years of probation, the probation becomes non-reporting, and after successful completion of 10 years on probation, the balance of the sentence be terminated. Mr. Williams asked the court for house arrest for 3 years as part of the sentence, but house arrest specifically defined that Mr. Williams will be in his home or at any lawful employment, touring, studio, performance, business meetings, and the like. Wear an ankle monitor for the first year and pay the costs of same, and the company must be approved by probation department, and the ankle monitor to be affixed within 10 days of hopeful release from custody.
probation is tricky, man.
Mr. Williams cannot possess a firearm, but he can be around licensed security who are armed or other persons who are lawfully carrying a firearm with a license. And that would be knowingly for Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams can transfer probation outside the state of Georgia. He has residences in the state of California. He has studios in the state of California. Mr. Williams be allowed to travel throughout our country and the world for lawful work-related industries. Mr. Williams wants to perform. He's going to do this anyway, Your Honor, but we made it part of the sentence. At least one concert each year at a venue, if they'll have him holding 10,000 people, if that is workable for the venue and Mr. Williams' management, and he is going to donate all of the profits that he makes to a 501c3 charity. Mr. Williams wants to pledge $100,000 for the next 3 years to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office if they will hold an illegal firearm buyback to buy back firearms that are not supposed to be on our streets. Mr. Williams does not wish to go near the Cleveland Avenue area, not to insult that area at all, but it is just not a good idea under this circumstance. And he can drive on the highway, but otherwise not come within 1 mile of the area that we call Cleveland Avenue, and we can give the exact dimensions of that area. Mr. Williams must perform 100 hours of community service per year for the next 3 years as designated by probation department. Mr. Williams can associate,
Come on.
and this was agreed to previously, with people who are convicted felon or alleged gang members solely for lawful purpose of making music.
All right, I see Ms. Love shaking her head, and I think it's fair to establish that until the entirety of the negotiations were agreed to, it was all up in the air.
Sure.
That may have been something y'all had already hammered out, but it's not anything they're bound to.
Absolutely.
Fair, okay.
I agree with that. Mr. Williams can have no contact with any of the supposed victims, and there was an Exhibit A attached to the state's proposed plea agreement, negotiated plea agreement that was sent to you, so we adopt that Exhibit A, but we can give it to the court if you need those names. And Mr. Williams have no contact with any of the co-defendants in this indictment, with the exception of Mr. Quantavious Greer, that is his biological brother, as well as Mr. Sergio Kitchens. He's a phenomenal artist. He goes
You gotta
perform
say
the
biological
gun,
brother nowadays.
G-U-N-N-A. Mr. Williams and
somebody
Mr.
blood
Kitchens
brother.
are contractually obligated, and they frequently perform music together. Your Honor, any other conditions that this honorable court deems appropriate? I want to thank the court for all your time. Always, I want to
Lawyer, the
thank
truth, man.
Ms. Percival for everything she has done. I want to thank Mr. Williams for allowing me to stand with
Lawyer,
him.
the truth.
I really never thought we would be here, but this is
Put
his
him on the
decision.
map.
I want to thank the Honorable Keith Adams, who may want to speak, Your Honor, but I can never imagine a better lawyer than Keith Adams.
Mr. Adams, do you want to add anything to the record?
Your Honor, I don't know that there's really much to add. Mr. Steele has represented to the court, I think fully and thoroughly, the breadth of our knowledge of the case. Mr. Williams's background, I think the court has not just heard it from Mr. Steele, but has had the opportunity to sit here and hear some of the evidence and kind of get a feel. You've had a chance also to observe Mr. Williams and then get a feel for him, his background, and so forth. You know, the only thing I can say about Mr. Williams that hasn't been said is that he comes from an area. You might have heard throughout the course of the trial that there was an album, a concert tour. We came from nothing. And that is true. Mr. Williams came from, you know, I hate to use the word abject poverty, but that really is the case. Came from an area where there was a significant amount of crime, where, as you've heard, he's had tragedy in his life and has observed tragedy in his life. And he has gone through a good bit. He has been involved in a lot, but he has raised himself up. He has done the best he could and has done phenomenally well, and is, I think, an inspiration to a lot of people from that community who look to him and see the success that he has gained and have been fully supportive of him. But he finds himself here. He is in front of you. He is tendering this plea because he accepts responsibility. You have heard everything Mr. Steele has had to say. I can only ask that you follow what we have put before you. You also have, I believe, the paperwork that was given to you by the state, which kind of gives you some idea of what they were looking for as well in terms of conditions on Mr. Williams, if we were to have reached some sort of agreement. And we ask that if you feel that there's anything within the state's proposal that might be appropriate in terms of the sentence for Mr. Williams, that the court please feel free to do that. There is nothing that he puts himself before the court. And I think 2.5 years sitting, going through this process, challenging the process, but now standing before you and asking that you consider everything and sentence him appropriately in the way that we've requested. I'd simply ask you, I'd join Mr. Steele and Mr. Williams in asking you to do the same. And I thank you as well, as Mr. Steele did, for your patience with us and for bringing some order to the proceedings that candidly was needed. So that's all I have to say. I thank you again, and I ask you to consider everything that's been put before you.
All right, Mr. Williams, is there anything that you want to say?
Yes, ma'am. I take full responsibility for, you know, my crimes or my charges. I want to say sorry to my family, my mom. My mom got 11 kids. I can't say all their names, you know. My managers, my kids that's not here. Really everybody that got something to do with this situation, I want to say sorry for just, like, you know, having so much time invested into this, you know. And I am a smart guy. I am a good guy, and I really got a good heart, you know. I find myself in a lot of stuff because I was just nice or cool, you know, and I understand that you can't be that way when you reach a certain height, because it could end bad, and it don't really have to have nothing to do with you, but it could end bad, and it could, you know, fall on you. And I know the choice is yours, it's up to you, and I hope that you allow me to go home today and just trust in me to just do the right
Let
thing.
that man go
Never
home,
see you
man.
again unless it's at a, you know, bar in the future or something. Just out of this type of situation, I promise you I won't ever be in this type of situation again. I'm I'm going away. I've learned from my mistakes. You know, I come from nothing and I've made something and I didn't take full advantage of it. I'm sorry. Through these last 2.5 years of my life, you are really, truly, honestly, the best thing that has happened to me, because you made everything fair for me and everybody involved on both sides, you know. I'm sorry to the sheriff, you know, everybody, for just having to put extra time in. I know y'all got paid more money, but I'm sorry for y'all having to put this extra time in to be away from y'all family, you know, and I just hope that you find it in your heart to allow me to go home and be with my family and
Let that man go home, man.
do better as a person. I know what I bring to the table. I know what I am. I know the heights I've reached. I know the impact I got on people, period, in the community, you know, all people. I learned that late, like these past 2 or 3 years of my life, I kind of learned that late. And maybe it was because I was, you know, probably on drugs or anything, I don't know. But I have came to my senses and I understand what I mean to this world. But I am a good guy, you know, I don't mind doing stuff like, you know, like free shows, and I always did that. You know, I did free shows and gave it to single parents, millions of dollars. You know, I made $1.8 million on a free show, and I gave it all to single parent charity. And I did like 2 or 3 shows that made like $700,000 a piece, and I gave it to the breast cancer organization. Like, you know, I do things like I put millions of dollars back into my community for real. I really did. I did more than anybody ever did from my side, you know. But I understand, you know, rap lyrics. I understand how it could be twisted. I understand what it could do to the mind of people. I understand all that, and I promise you, I'm 100% changing that. You know, it's just, I'm older, I'm grown now, you know, and it's just like, I'm smarter. It's more things to rap about. Like I've experienced a lot of good things. I experienced more bad things, but I experienced a lot of good things too. And anyway, I can go forever.
Well, I appreciate it. And I appreciate that you do realize how much of an impact you have on people. I mean, it's past your neighborhood. It's worldwide, especially young people. And having come up from where you came up from and living in and around that, you know that gangs are damaging to our community. And it may be that
I said lock him up.
a whole lot of rap music and the rap industry is, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a modern day version of kind of WWE wrestling that used to be on television, where people would just get up and posture and act like they hated each other. And it may be that that's a lot of what is going on in the music industry with rap. But whether it is fake or not, it has tremendous impact on kids and young people who think, this is cool, this is what I want to do. Look at him, he's a millionaire. I can do that by being, you know, a gangster in the streets. And that's not true. What you're likely to have happen to you if you're a gangster in the streets is you get shot, you get killed, or you get thrown in prison. And those are, you know, by far the most likely outcomes.
He did talk for a long time, Trev. He was trying to get out. He's trying to come home, man.
You've been in here watching the trial, and you've seen the pictures of Mr. Ryan posing with a gun as big as he is at 15 years old and going out and shooting and killing another teenager. And that's what gangs do. And that's unfortunately a lot of what rap music does. And if you are a modern day John Lennon, you know, I mean, he might have rapped too in this day and age. I don't know. But I know you're talented. And even if you choose to continue to rap, you need to try to use your influence to let kids know that that is not the way to go, and that there are ways out of poverty besides hooking up with the powerful guy at the end of the street selling drugs. And, I know that happens for protection sometimes, but a much better way would be getting an education and setting, hanging around with people who set a good example. And you be one of those people that sets a good example. All right, so that's my high horse on
No,
that.
Young Thug co-signing Drake now.
At Bob Evans,
Young
we're
Thug
so
is gonna
committed
be
to
the
making
one who
delicious,
should,
buttery, real mashed
bring
potatoes.
Drake
We've
back,
started.
in my opinion.
More of the solution and less of the problem. All right. All right. So it is not lost on the court that the state, had they been able to come to agreement on certain special conditions, was willing to entirely dismiss the RICO count, was willing to entirely dismiss one of the gang counts, and was willing to entirely dismiss this, machine gun count. Was willing to give a sentence that permitted Mr. Williams to walk out of the door today, and therefore does not seem to be particularly worried that Mr. Williams, if on the streets, would be a danger to society. I'm taking that into consideration in crafting my sentence. And in permitting a NOLO plea to the RICO count and one of the two gang counts, I would not be permitting the NOLO to the one if you were not pleading guilty to at least one of them. But you are, and y'all admit a factual basis for the counts that you are pleading guilty to. I find there to be a factual basis for those counts, and for the remaining counts with which you are charged. I am going to impose a sentence, and I've taken a little bit of the suggested special conditions from the defense and a little bit of the special conditions suggested by the prosecution. On count one, the court sentence is 20 years to serve 5 years, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years to be probated, and a $25,000 fine. On count two, the sentence is 5 years to serve, commuted to time served. That's the minimum sentence that's permitted on that count. It is required to be run consecutively. I'm going to run it consecutive to count one, but I am going to backload. Oh, I'm sorry, that is not commuted. That is 5 years to serve, and it's going to be run consecutively to count one, backloaded, by which I mean after you serve your 15 years of probation, if you have been successful on that probation, and I sincerely hope that you are, then at the end of that 15 years, I will commute the entire rest of any service portion of your sentence to time served. So I'll get to the end of it and give you the total sentence, but I'm also going to impose a $15,000 fine with regard to that count. Count 57, 20 years to serve 5, commuted to time served, the balance of 15 years probated, concurrent with count 1. Count 58,
got to do 5
10
years.
years to serve 5, commuted to time served, balance probated, concurrent with count 1. 59, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. 60, 5 years to serve, commuted to time served, concurrent with count 1. Count 61, 5 years to serve, that is required to be also a consecutive sentence, so that's going to be run consecutively to count 56 and backloaded. Count 62, 10 years to serve, also required to be served consecutively, that's going to be consecutive to count 61, also backloaded. So essentially, the total sentence is 40 years to serve the first 5 years in prison, but commuted to the time that you have already served.
So he's going
followed
home.
by 15 years on probation. Followed then by the backloaded 20 years, which can be served in custody and will be served in custody if you are not successful on your probation. If you are successful in completing your 15 years probation, that will be commuted to time served.
Wow.
You are to remain on reporting status for the first half of your probation, active reporting for the first 7.5 years of your probation, and that is pursuant to OCGA 17-10-1, subsection 2, A2A. And Mr. Steele and Mr. Adams, in order to keep him on reporting status, there needs to be good cause shown. We all concede that good cause is shown here?
Stipulate.
All right, I appreciate that. Special conditions of your probation.
What good cause? What do it mean?
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Sure.
Y'all know a hood dude don't know what's going on. What
Thank
that
you.
mean? He heard
All right.
40 years.
You had enough time to talk with your attorneys?
Yes.
Okay. All right, special conditions of your probation. After 48 hours from your release, you are to stay away from the metro Atlanta area, and that's defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. It may change, but you can look that up anytime to figure out what that is. For the first 10 years of your probation, subject to the following exceptions. You are permitted to be in the metro Atlanta area to attend any wedding, funeral, or graduation from high school, college, or graduate school of any of your immediate family members. And immediate family members is defined the same way that you all were contemplating it when you were negotiating. You can get here up to 24 hours prior to any such event, and you need to leave within 48 hours after any such event. In addition, during each year of your probation, I'm going to require that you come to the metro Atlanta area and make a live anti-gang and anti-gun violence presentation 4 times a year, each year of your probation, at a grade school, a middle school, a boys or girls club, anything like that, that type of group. And if you want to, that presentation can include a benefit concert, and these presentations may count towards your required community service hours, which I'm going to impose, that during each year of your probation, you perform 100 hours of community service.
Dang, he got to do it.
You are, and this is required by the fact that there's a gang conviction. You shall not knowingly have contact of any kind or character with any other member or associate of any criminal street gang. Exception to that, if your brother is a member of any street gang, I hope you talk him into getting out of it. Quantavious Greer, and then also Sergio Kitchens, as long as you are contractually obligated to him. That is going to include anybody who is named in this indictment, except as absolutely necessary to conduct the lawful business of your musical career, and to any extent that the state is not agreeing to the exception for Mr. Kitchens. In the event that that part is not enforceable because it is only a portion of a special condition, going to provide that that be severable from the rest of this, and I'll put some case sites.
Oh no, man, Gunna dropping #1, man.
You are in no way to promote any criminal street gang or any criminal street gang activity, including on any social media platform. You are not to utilize any hand signs, terminology, or language that promotes any criminal street gang. You are not to participate in any criminal street gang activity. You are not to knowingly engage in any contact with any of the victims that are listed in this indictment or with any of their family members. And you may not have in your possession or with arm's reach any kind of a firearm because you're going to be a convicted felon. And that is, except I know that you have security and you need security. You can be within arm's reach of a firearm that is in the possession of either licensed law enforcement or licensed security personnel that are in your security detail or anybody that you're performing with. You are to submit to random drug screens and not use any drugs unless they are prescribed for you by a licensed physician. You are to execute a Fourth Amendment waiver that will permit the search of your person, residence, vehicles, and electronics for any firearms, any criminal street gang paraphernalia, or any illicit drugs. And as I mentioned, with regard to one of the first of your co-defendants from this trial, at least since I've been involved, to plead guilty, our Uniform Superior Court rules instruct and provide that it is absolutely proper for a judge to grant leniency in sentencing when, quote, the interest of the public in the effective administration of criminal justice are served, unquote. And I think that this plea is in the interest of the public and in the interest of effective administration of justice. Have been trying to ensure that to the extent I can, this trial also abides by that. It's been challenging at certain times. I find your plea to be freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered with an understanding of the consequences, and I accept it as such. I also need to inform you that your attorneys were going to represent you through either the last day of this term of court or 30 days from now, whichever is later, and any of the filings that were mentioned that need to be filed within that time, they would file on your behalf unless they are permitted to withdraw from representing you before that time. I am not going to impose the conditions suggested by your counsel about the benefit concerts and the donations to the sheriff's office, but I certainly strongly encourage you to do those things and to do and continue to do things that benefit your community and especially help young people to stay out of criminal trouble. And unless there is anything from counsel other than that.
I have one matter, Your Honor.
Okay, and does the state as well?
Yeah.
Your Honor, with regards to Mr. Williams being permitted to come to the Metro Atlanta area
Yes.
or Cleveland Avenue area for funeral or the other items,
Right.
can you also consider, God forbid, there's a serious medical condition of a person that
In
is,
his immediate family,
yeah.
certainly, we can add that. And I
They
also
don't even
meant
want
to
them on
mention,
Cleveland Avenue no more.
because I know you
That's
do travel
crazy.
all over in order to
Smart though.
pursue your career, that it's permissible for your probation to be transferred to out of state, and that has to be done through probation, but that is fine with the court. And you may also keep your, nobody's mentioned it, but keep your passport and travel out of state and internationally to the extent that you need to do that for business purposes as well. All right, Mr. Vadi.
Yes, just very briefly, thank you. The district attorney just wanted me to urge the court, due to the fact that the Thomases have been negatively affected incredibly traumatically by what has been discussed by both parties here today, to make a brief statement as she believes that they fall within the exception or within the bounds of Marcy's law. If the court would allow, I understand
40.
the court made a ruling earlier.
50 years old by
related
the
to that,
time you can go
that
to
she
Atlanta.
wants,
it's over now.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate, well, I cannot even begin to understand what they must, anybody must be going through when they lose a family member to violence or criminal violence. Mr. Williams himself has expressed his own sorrow to the family. I, again, am going to stand by my belief that the appropriate time to hear a victim impact statement from them is at the close of the trial that contains the murder count with regard to their family member. All right, thank you. Okay, court is adjourned. Good luck to you. And I'm going to have there better be no violations, but if there are any, you're coming back to see me.
Dang.
All right.
I hate when the judge used to tell me that. Hey, right before you leave, hey, you come in here on violation, I'm gonna give it to you. That made me want to walk squeaky clean, but I tell you, probation is tough, man. When you're in that free world, you got to be around
Let's take a
all legal
recess,
people
and I'll
that's
be back.
doing right. If you around anybody, you could just catch yourself up in violation. You don't got no bond. You can't travel. That's what's up. He going home though, man. I'm glad to see him going home. You know, and he gonna clean up the community. I like his speech when he talked about what he want to do to help his community. Because at the end of the day, you want somebody to go in jail and know their punishment. You just want them to come out and be a better person. We can't have people going in jail and they coming out having to do the same thing. So it's good to see that they're caring about that at least, because we can't have habitual criminals. Man, y'all was going in on this one, man. I appreciate y'all.
Hey there, Young Thug trial watchers. This is a law and crime legal alert. A mother was recently awarded millions of dollars in a lawsuit against baby formula manufacturers after
yeah,
the
that's it,
premature
man.
baby
Y'all
was
make sure y'all
diagnosed
subscribe
with
to the channel, man. Hit that like button.
enterocolitis or NEC
Push
after
me on the
receiving
algorithm,
bovine-based
man. I greatly
formula.
appreciate that. I'm gonna do a video on this and see. You know, do a video, see what everybody think about it. But Young Thug coming home. I think he got house arrest. He got 10 years probation, but he can't go back to Cleveland Avenue. But it's what's up, man. The streets finna be on fire after this. Let me know what y'all think, man. Y'all tap into me, man. I give updates on, you know, the criminal side, because I've been in that probation system. I had to sit next to that judge and sit there, and they say, you got a year house arrest followed by 2 years probation. And I was happy. I was happy to accept that. Oh man, I just want to go home, you know. But sometimes they'll put you in a predicament to where they can still win. They want to have this probation on you. So if you mess up, you got to pay and you get to go to jail. So, man, I appreciate everybody for tapping in with me, man. I catch y'all on the next one. Y'all go ahead and subscribe, man. I give good content. Peace and love.